I remember in the first grade.
And I want to deliver a message. I'm not sure if it happened to me or if it was a memory that I remember someone telling me about.
I believe it was Mrs. Hastings' class that I went to school and we were doing an art project.
I think it happened to me though. I feel pretty good about that.
Our class was set up that 4 desks were grouped together with different clusters of those 4 groups around the classroom.
And I was younger. I might have been about 6 to 9 years old, and I remember being in my bedroom, and there was a very, very bright light. I've heard that these things be described as some sort of tractor beam. I don't know if that's what it was, but a very bright white light shone into my bedroom window on the wall.
I remember, I think, doing an art project, and I was sick that day, and I was trying to keep it together. I don't know if my mom made me go or didn't believe me or I didn't say something. I didn't tell her that I was sick, but I went to school anyways.
And I remember a feeling of being connected to some sort of otherworldly being, some sort of other power. It didn't communicate per se. There were no words or no thoughts or telekinesis or any of that sort of stuff that I've heard about on the AM radio.
And I remember throwing up, and I remember the throw up cascading over the group of 4 desks onto all of my other classmates' art projects.
Or anything, but certainly I felt the presence of this otherworldly being, and I felt lifted up and felt warm all over my body.
And over the desks, onto them, and feeling embarrassed, very embarrassed by it. I don't remember what happened after. I'm sure I went home. Sick and went to bed.
And so I felt like I was in contact with some other worldly thing. I don't know if I necessarily took a trip up to any other place or any sort of craft or anything like that, but I do feel that I had some contact and I felt connected, and it was not a negative experience. I don't know if it was necessarily positive, but maybe kind of neutral to neutral positive, something like that.
But I do remember their faces. Yeah, that's it.
Anyways, that was the memory that I had, and it felt very, very connected and interesting. And it may not have happened to me at all. I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that it existed as a memory, and it might have been something that happened to me.
I remember being a teenager traveling across the United States.
This is a faded memory of or fading memory of a fading memory.
Smoking some pot and sitting next to a mountain stream by Shasta Lake and feeling at one with the universe.
When I was a little kid, I used to go visit my great aunt and uncle that lived in Amarillo, Texas. And I would go with my grandma and my aunt. And my great aunt and great uncle were quite old. They were in their 80s and, old-timey Texans. And so I have kind of vague memories of hanging out there at their house. And they had a back little area that was kind of paved with really broken up and nasty bricks. And I remember trying to ride an old skateboard on those bricks and hurting myself.
So this memory occurred probably when I was about 3 years old, and I was on a field trip. Sorry, not a field trip. I was on a road trip with my mom to see her family on the East Coast.
And then I also have kind of this funny memory of my uncle, who was in his mid-80s at the time. He had a farm, and that was kind of what he did every single day, was go out to the farm. And in his little shed, he had a massive, at the time seemed to me a massive freezer or refrigerator that was full of nothing but cans of beer.
She always talks about this trip, and I was so young that I really don't remember anything of it. But I think it was on that trip. And we were in this weird kind of swanky campground area. And I really remember the feel of this campground area.
So I think he would just get drunk and go out there and do his farm thing. But the thing that's kind of the faded memory of the faded memory is that he used to have a bunch of basically feral cats, and he would feed them, and he always said that he didn't really care about them. He always affected like they were just meaningless animals that were around, but he still took care of them.
And just it being like there were playgrounds and there were so many families, and it being really different from any camping experience I'd had before that. And there was a lake there, and I remember going swimming and finding diving down in the water and grabbing this solid chunk of dirt, which I then was almost certain was a giant, turd.
And I remember there was one year that I was there and I was playing with the cats, and there was one cat that was kind of sick. And and this is kind of one of those things, I don't know if I actually remember that or if I just remember it because the cat, probably a week after we left, ended up dying, and apparently it really upset my uncle. And I remember my grandmother relaying this to me, and then me trying to remember that cat.
I'm almost certain that I reached down and found some, piece of shit in the water, and I was, going to tell my mom about it, but I don't think I even did. But I was I remember being so young that I wasn't necessarily super grossed out about the fact that I was maybe just holding a giant in my hand. I remember.
And I feel like I do kind of remember that cat, but that's actually quite faded. And I don't know if I actually do remember it.
Thinking oh, this is weird. This is a piece of poop, I think. And then.
Or if I remember it because I remember that happening and I wanted to remember it.
Putting it down, or maybe I did tell my mom. I don't know. I've never tried to verify that I found a turd, or maybe she was really grossed out and told me to put it down. I have no idea. But another reason I can't verify this memory is because I don't think I've ever told anyone about it. I don't think I've ever asked. I don't know. It's a small, insignificant thing, but I remember that. I think I remember that. It could have also just been some clumps of mud, but it could also be a piece of shit. Okay. Thanks.
I have a memory that I cannot confirm nor completely piece together. I was once at the zoo. I was a rambunctious child, and I ran far ahead of my parents. I had passed through the reptilian sanctuary, and upon exiting and looking back to see if my family would catch up, I heard yelling, and a door opened, and there was a snake on the ground, and there were zookeepers, and they were trying to contain the snake, and I couldn't quite see it, but I saw just a little section of it. It looked very large, and then they shut the door, and that's where my memory ends. Please give me answers.
So I just want to thank you for letting me call in, and I hope you have a fantastic day or evening wherever you might be. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Hi, I deposited a previous memory. I wanted to clarify this memory about a snake escaping from the zoo may or may not have been a segment from the fictional book Harry Potter. But I do believe in my heart that I was there, at least in some form.